Hello and welcome to Bullying, Violence, and Abuse Prevention. My name is Taylor Reimer and I am Education and Training Coordinator at KIN Canada. I have about a 30-minute presentation for you today, and before I begin, I just wanted to remind you that if you are taking this course right now, when you are complete, you need to send me a record of your name and your club so that I can make sure that we mark you as complete in our system. If you're taking this as a group, please have one person take attendance and send it over to me at tprimer@kincanada.ca. Before we begin, I just also want to make a note that some of the material that we'll discuss today is sensitive in nature. We're dealing with some mature concepts and ideas. So please make sure that there are no young people around. And please take the time that you need throughout this session to really ground yourself and take the time you need afterwards to decompress. So KIN Canada aims to be an association that reflects the very best of mutual support, respect, and tolerance. Every member should feel that they can contribute, participate, and freely take part in KIN activities without fear of being bullied or harassed. This aspiration will be realized through building awareness, educating, and equipping our members with the tools and resources that they need to prevent, identify, and address behaviors that reflect negatively upon our stated values. KIN members have an important responsibility to ensure that all members and the public who are interacted with are treated with dignity and respect and are safe from harm. Harm can occur through direct acts of violence, including abuse, bullying, or harassment. By the end of this session, you will be able to define types of abuse and identify warning signs of abuse, differentiate what bullying and harassment look like, and define KIN Canada's complaint and investigation process. You'll be able to recognize individual responsibility of ethical and legal obligations for reporting suspected abuse. We'll also outline some reporting requirements and summarize practices that really help us promote a safe environment for all people. Ultimately, this training will help us serve our community's greatest needs by stopping and preventing abuse, bullying, or harassment within our clubs. So let's begin by talking about bullying. What is it? Well, bullying happens when someone hurts or scares another person on purpose, and the person being bullied has a hard time defending themselves. The four most common types of bullying are verbal bullying, social bullying, physical bullying, and cyberbullying. Verbal bullying is things like name calling, sarcasm, teasing, spreading rumors, making negative references to one's culture, ethnicity, race, religion, gender, or sexual orientation. Social bullying is things like mobbing or scapegoating, excluding others from a group, or humiliating them. Physical bullying is kind of what I think in that classic bullying movie situation of kids on the playground. It's things like hitting, poking, pinching, chasing, shoving, coercing, destroying, or stealing belongings, or unwanted sexual touching. Cyberbullying is a reality of the world we live in right now. It's typically thought of as teens, but in reality, it's not just teenagers anymore. And it's using the internet or text messaging to intimidate, put down, spread rumors, or make fun of someone. We've probably all encountered some form of these types of bullying in our lives or have been witness to others experiencing it. We need to be on the lookout for this, because there are various psychological and physical consequences from bullying. The list below describes some of the things that could happen as a result of bullying. It's not extensive, and we know that not only physical scars can happen from bullying, but also psychological ones. It's our duty to protect our communities from this type of bullying treatments. On the flip side, what is harassment? Well, as defined by the Human Rights Commission, harassment is a form of discrimination. It includes any unwanted physical or verbal behavior that offends or humiliates you. Generally, harassment is a behavior that persists over time, but serious one-time incidents can also sometimes be considered harassment. Harassment occurs when someone makes unwelcome remarks or jokes, threatens or intimidates someone because of their race, religion, sex, age, disability, or any other of the grounds for discrimination as accorded by the Canadian Human Rights Act. It's when they make unwelcome physical contact or unwanted sexual advances. They might use gestures of intimidation or spread rumors, make someone perform a task that is inferior to them or demeans or belittles them. It's denying or ignoring their presence or isolating them, and it's doing things that make fun of their beliefs, values, politics, or religious choices. It's really mocking their weak points. If you experience bullying, harassment, or abuse, Canada has a unique way of handling complaints and investigation. First and foremost, and I cannot stress this enough, if you feel unsafe, please call the police. As Kin, we promise to be a good character and a good community standard. We promise to not engage in these types of behavior. We promise to serve our community's greatest needs. And if you are feeling harassed or violated in any way, contact the club president and fill out a complaint. If things are not handled the way that it should be, contact the operations team at Kin Canada. At any time, if you feel that the situation warrants calling the police, please do so. For further information on the required practices of clubs and members responding to allegations of bullying harassment, please review the National Policies and Procedures of the Association, Chapter 11. This details the conduct of character, community, standing, and complaint resolution. According to Chapter 11, if there are allegations that an active member is not being of good character or in good community standard, a signed written statement must be given to the club executive. The nature of the allegation against the active member in question is outlined in a written, detailed explanation upon the basis of which the allegation is being made. Once a written statement is received, the club executive at its next meeting will review and consider the information in a fair and impartial way. Potential temporary suspension as an active member or from any official position within the club pending a final determination on the matter will be made. However, if a situation identified involves a criminal charge against an active member, then any suspension of the active member ordered by the club executive shall continue until criminal charges are addressed and resolved. The policy outlines actions and requirements to be followed when criminal convictions against an active member are made. So again, this is found in Chapter 11, Conduct of Character, Community Standing, and Complaint Resolution. So let's talk about what abuse is. Abuse is a behavior used to intimidate, isolate, dominate, or control another person. Abuse can be acts, words, or even neglect. It may happen once or over a period of time. There are 5 main types of abuse. These are physical, psychological, or emotional, sexual, financial, and involving neglect. Physical abuse is any act of violence or rough handling that causes physical discomfort, pain, or physical injury to a person. Some indicators of abuse are things like unexplained falls and injuries, or cuts or finger marks, or other evidence of physical restraint. It might be malnourishment or dehydration without an illness-related cause. Next, we have psychological and emotional abuse. Psychological and emotional abuse is any action, behavior, or remark which diminishes a person's identity, dignity, and self-worth. Emotional abuse is often the one that goes the most underreported, but it can leave real, long-lasting psychological scars. Indications of physical emotional abuse could also include things like threatening, belittling, or controlling caregiver behavior that you witness, or individuals feel fearful or disclosing emotional abuse to you. Next, we have sexual abuse. Sexual abuse is any touching, behavior, or remarks of a sexual nature directed towards another person without the person's consent. And some indicators may be that the individual says he or she has been assaulted, unexplained changes in behavior, such as aggression, withdrawal, or self mutilation, frequent complaints of abdominal pain, or reluctance to being physically touched or examined. Financial abuse is any misappropriation or misuse of money, property, or assets that result in a monetary or personal gain to the abuser and/or monetary or personal loss for other individuals and/or the organization. This is super important for all kin to be aware of. Indicators of financial abuse could include items or cash missing, and unexplained withdrawals of money, ticket sale records not aligning with tickets left, or suspicious activity on bank or credit card accounts. Again, this one is really important for us to be on the lookout for as we're running events, taking money, and fundraising within our communities. Finally, we have neglect. Neglect refers to situations in which a caregiver fails to provide adequate clothing, food, or shelter, deliberately or otherwise. Neglect can also apply to the abandonment of a child or the omission of basic care such as medical or dental care. Some indicators may be unexplained or non-accidental marks such as bruises, welts, cuts, or burns. These would usually indicate something like inadequate supervision or the child or even a senior having to fend for themselves. They might also have inappropriate clothing, such as showing up to an event in the middle of the winter with sandals on, be abnormally hungry or hoarding food, being watchful and extremely compliant, passive, or withdrawn. And sometimes they might come to places really early or stay really late. They might fall asleep during a meeting, things like that. This is definitely super important to be on the watch for as we're dealing with vulnerable people. And ultimately, if you suspect child abuse, everyone has a duty to report it. I want to take a moment to emphasize this because this differs from what the reporting requirements are in the States. Everyone in Canada has a duty to report child abuse and neglect. We're not like in the States where we have mandated reporters like teachers, nurses, or clergy people. In Canada, we all have the same duty to report. And in fact, people who work in some professions actually have an elevated duty to report, and they can be fined or lose their license if they fail to do so. So you're obliged to report child maltreatment if you know or suspect it's occurring. And this again is called duty to report. So members, volunteers, and staff should use Kin Canada's incident reporting form to record brief information indicating the vulnerable person's name, the date the call was made to the police services, and the program location. In the description, record call made to the police regarding suspected abuse of a vulnerable person, then sign and date the incident report form. And then please forward a copy to the the club risk manager, who will forward it to the risk management coordinator, Melanie Neeson. If you have to make a report, it is essential that you make sure documentation is complete. And the reason for this is if this suspected abuse ever has to go to a court, or if anybody ever has to be called to testify, we want to make sure that we have done everything in our power to document what has happened in a way that would make it permissible in court. So we need you to sign and date the report, place the report in a sealed envelope marked confidential. You can write the child's name on the front and sign and date the envelope. Do not include or document your personal thoughts about how it might have happened. We really want to stick to the facts on this. You can include direct observations and indicators to support your statement. Include what someone else has told you, as long as it's relevant, or what the child themselves has told you. Do not make a rough copy and then rewrite it in good. Your original document is required. If you make a mistake, don't use whiteout, simply cross it out with a single line and initial. And really, a great way to avoid being on the other side of this situation is to really maintain those safe boundaries and relationships throughout all of your kin activities. So, as bystanders, we need to be vigilant and aware of what disrespect, harassment, hate, and violence look like in order to be able to stand up and intervene at a time when people need it most. We really need to know how to respond. We've gone over what different types of bullying and harassment and abuse look like. Now we really need to zero in on what to do if we see it happening, particularly if we see it happening to another adult. It has been suggested that worse than being targeted with harassment because of race, sex, religion, color, gender, size, orientation, disability, age, or origin is being targeted while surrounded by bystanders who see what is happening but do nothing. As Winston Churchill once said, courage is the first of human qualities because it is a quality which guarantees all others. So we're going to talk about something called the 5 Ds of bystander intervention. The 5 Ds consist of distract, delegate, document, delay, and direct. They're how we can support someone who is being harassed. They emphasize that harassment is not okay, and they demonstrate to other bystanders that they too have the power to make our communities and workplaces safer. Let's be leaders and serve our community's greatest needs when it comes to stopping harassment. So the first D is distract. Distraction is a subtle and creative way to intervene and aim to derail the incident by interrupting it and engage directly with the person who is being targeted. Instead of talking about or referring to the harassment, talk about something completely unrelated. You can try some of the following things. You could pretend to be lost or ask the time from the person being harassed. This gives them a distraction, and it helps the harasser hopefully move on because they're realizing another person is there and seeing what's going on. You could do something like pretending to know the person being harassed and say, "Hey, so great to see you. I haven't seen you since high school," or something like that that would really make it clear that you know them. Or you could actually get in the way by getting between the harasser and the target. By this, I mean, like if you were on a bus or something and a harasser was making inappropriate sexual gestures at someone, you could stand up and physically block their view of that person. It's really crucial to read the situation and choose your distract method accordingly. The person who is being targeted will likely catch on, and hopefully your act or statement will help to de-escalate the situation. Next, we have delegate. Delegate is when you ask for assistance, a resource, or for help from a third party. Some examples of what you might do include finding someone nearby, such as a store supervisor, bus driver, a transit employee, even a security person, and ask them to intervene. Try to work together with someone near you who has also noticed what's happening and might be in a better position to assist and intervene. Call 911 if it's safe to, and request help. Your best judgment may be required in situations when you're not able to consult with the individual, but really try to assess the situation and determine how you can effectively use the strategy of delegating. Next, we have documenting. So safely and responsibly documenting incidents can be helpful in situations. However, and I really want to stress that you really need to ask someone who is being harassed if they are okay with you documenting it. I know a lot of us reach for phones in situations like this, but it's important to remember to never post a video online or use any type of recording without permission, as being harassed or violated is already a really disempowering experience. And we don't want to publicize another person's traumatic experience without their consent. And that's not really being a helpful bystander. But again, this can be really helpful if you get the other person's consent to show to police later or to show to other authority figures. Finally, we have direct. Since direction intervention can be risky, I really want to encourage you to use it with caution. Always think about safety and consider possibilities that are likely to put you or anyone else in harm's way. If using this tactic, the harasser may redirect their abuse towards you and escalate the situation when you confront them. So before you decide to respond directly, assess the situation. Just really get the lay of the land. Ask yourself, are you physically safe? Is the person being harassed physically safe? Does it seem unlikely that the situation will escalate? Can you tell if the person being harassed wants someone to speak up? And if you can answer yes to all of these questions, you might choose a direct response. So if you choose to directly intervene, the most important thing here is to keep it short and succinct and really to speak with authority. So some things you can say to the harasser are simple things like, that's inappropriate, or that's disrespectful, that's not okay, or even something straight to the point like, leave them alone. Try not to encourage debate or an argument, since this is how situations can escalate. If the harasser responds, try your best to assist the person who is targeted instead of engaging with the harasser. I think that's often a lot of our first impulses, at least it would be mine. But we really want to avoid getting into a debate with her harasser, use those short and succinct responses, and try to really shut down the situation. Letting them know that another person has taken notice of what they are doing and is not okay with it really applies that social pressure on the harasser. And then I believe I misspoke earlier, but delay is actually our last tactic. And it's even if you can't act in the moment, you can make a difference for the person who has been harassed by checking in on them after the fact. So you're delaying that intervention. Using the tactic of delay might look like asking if they're okay and telling them that you're sorry that happened to them, and asking if there's any way you can support them, and then really listening to what they say. They might be embarrassed and not really want to keep engaging with somebody, and you having said that you saw what happened and that it wasn't okay might just be enough. You could offer to accompany them to their destination or sit with them for a while. You could even share resources with them on how to make a report and sit with them as they do it. Even if you've documented the incident, ask them if you want them, if they want you to send it to them so that they have a record. Many types of harassment happen in passing or very quickly, in which case you can wait until the situation is over and speak to the person who was targeted then. So these are the 5 Ds of bystander intervention, and I find this personally a great toolbox to kind of keep in your back pocket of ways to intervene. So I just want to leave you with some concluding thoughts. Remember, everyone can do something. Research shows that even a knowing glance can significantly reduce trauma for the person who is targeted. At this time in history, more than ever, it is important to be an active bystander and let the person who is targeted know in some way, however big or small, that they are not alone, that we are Kin Canada and we are serving our community's greatest need by taking a stand against abuse, bullying, and harassment. So just before we log off, I want to remind you to send your attendance over to me at treimer at kincanada.ca. I'd like to encourage you to take a moment to either calm yourself, talk to a friend, go for a walk. I just want to recognize that this can be quite heavy material, and however you need to process it is how you need to do it. Take care of yourself. All right, thank you all for joining me for this bullying, violence, and abuse prevention course.